When traversing the vast events of Timelord Victorious, there's a small, humble two-part audio that Big Finish is selling for $4.99 in their short trips range. At first I was skeptical of this small addition to the long saga, but upon listening to this audio, man am I glad I spent out on it. This audio got me so excited not only with the return of Roger Delgado's master, who happens to be a favourite of mine, but also the perfect teasing of future events in the saga. This is my review of Master Thief and Lesser Evils. Master Thief and Lesser Evils are collected and are bundled together for the Timelord Victorious arc. These audios are both in the style of their short stories range and feature both Roger Delgado and Anthony Ainley's portrayal of the Master. I just want to start off by saying that I love the cover. I just want to take a second to appreciate the artwork Big Finish put out. Also, John Colshaw's impression of these characters is second to none. His impression is so much like these two actors, it's actually scary. I will play clips later in this video so you can hear for yourself, but honestly I was really taken back by this. Both of these stories are very much character pieces on the Master and really dive into the inner workings of the character. I found them both incredibly hard to stop listening to, and I was invested through the entire 40 minutes of both audios. I highly recommend spending out on these. Sophie Isles is the person who penned Master Thief and has previously written for Short Trips line for Big Finish in the past. As of January 2020, Isles is a regular writer for Doctor Who magazine, notably writing the review of Syl and the Devil Seeds of Arador in their 2020 yearbook special. As well as all of this, Isles does a lot of artwork for Doctor Who, so she seems to be a jack of all trades when it comes to contributions to the fandom. I feel Isles captured the Master perfectly in this audio, so I'll definitely be paying close attention to her career in the future. So the first story, Master Thief, features Roger Delgado's portrayal of the character, which starts off as a heist story. The Master enters a vault which keeps valuable items to steal a map, and brings with him a new weapon we haven't seen before. This weapon enables the Master to de-evolve a person to their ancestral pre-evolved state, essentially turning people into blobs of purple slime. The Master shoots down a lot of guards with his new weapon and steals the map he entered the vault for, but then the story takes a change in tone. The Master starts to find it difficult to kill people with this weapon, not because of a technical malfunction or because he needs fierce resistance, but because every time the Master blasts someone with this gun, their memories transfer to him. It's explained that this race of creatures he's attacking evolved from creatures that fed off emotions. The Master was being mentally attacked by the very creatures he had turned the guards into. He starts to find it difficult to kill the guards and has a near breakdown in this audio. For the first time ever, the weight of killing people is beginning to take its toll on him. The Master tries to resist these effects long enough to get himself back to the Tardis, but by then it was too late. All of his memories are beginning to be wiped from these mental attacks, and in a desperate attempt to save himself, he made a recording to himself for when he wakes up explaining who he is. The audio ends with him collapsing on the floor. This story is an interesting one. It really shows the weight of the actions characters like the Master have on the worlds and the people he interacts with. His victims hold him accountable for his actions and make him vulnerable. Now, I feel a lot of people get this audio wrong. People assume that the Master has a conscience in this audio, which they are partially right, but I feel it goes a bit deeper than that. He's being mentally attacked by the guilt these aliens are putting on him and forcing him to not only fight the guards, but to fight himself too. Every part of the Master's being is telling him not to kill people, but yet he still slaughters many people. The Master is so hell-bent on killing and doing evil that he's even able to resist himself. This audio proved how utterly evil the Master can be. Just take a listen to this clip.
They stood closer together than colleagues should. His hands rested on her shoulders, urging her to act. But when they finally saw him, the talking stopped. They moved together as one and stood hand in hand, blocking the entrance to the vault. The Master advanced forward, If it was possible, they stood even closer together. The younger guard spoke up. "So what are you waiting for? What do you want?" she ordered with a failing tone. Of course, he thought, surprising himself. Why hadn't he shot them straight away? "I want your obedience or your death. It matters little to me. Move out of my way." She looked up at her partner. He nodded. After that, the pair stood ashen in the incandescent light. They didn't budge. Very well. The master raised the weapon again. They were embracing in the end. There was no goodbye kiss, no time for their lips to touch, only their eyes locked on each other as the master squeezed the trigger.
This scene is an example of the brutal way Isles presents the Master and doesn't hold any punches. This is an absolutely fantastic audio, with my only real gripe with it being the jarring changing tone and pace after the Master steals the map, but I can forgive this as I can completely see where the author was going with it. Overall, I have to give Master Thief a 9 out of 10, a must listen for any Delgado fan. The second story in this set is called Lesser Evils and is actually way better than I first thought. Simon Gurrier is the author of this one, and at this point he's an exceptionally experienced writer for Doctor Who, having written for the PDA range, NSA range, and too many short trips to count. He's also contributed to the Big Finish short trips books as well, making him very comfortable writing good Doctor Who stories. Gurrier's experience shines through Lesser Evils, which makes a gripping and interesting listen. The story is set on a planet called Alexis, really early on in the universe's history when death wasn't the norm yet. At the start of the story, the Keturah had arrived to Alexis to dispense death all across the inhabitants. Now, the Keturah appear in more stories later on in the Timelord Victorious arc, so I won't go into much detail about them now, but just think of them as the living incarnation of death. As the Keturah were busy giving all life forms on the planet a set amount of time to live, it notices a monkey-like animal. Just before it decides the animal's lifetime, Anthony Ainley's portrayal of the Master starts to defend the species. The Master makes a case for why they should live a long life, going into detail about how these monkeys hold stones in one of their 6 hands for thousands of years, which creates a stone that has psychic properties. They do this so they know which of their species to trust and which not to, and they offer the stones out to other species so they know who to be wary of. Whilst the Master was defending the species and pleading with the Keturah to give them long life due to their purity, one of the monkeys offered the Master its stone, which started to glow blue, meaning that his intentions were malicious. The Keturah then cast its judgment on the monkeys, who welcomed death, and over time started to develop as a species, due to them now only having a finite time to live. I really liked this one. I came into the story not understanding what was really going on or seeing the point of the story, as it was such a tone shift from the previous one. But you must stick through this, as it paints a beautiful picture of a really introspective narrative. At the start you think the Master's doing good, preventing species from dying, but you learn throughout the story that death is actually a really positive thing. After the Keturah dispensed death on the species of monkey, they started to develop more than they ever would have done if they didn't have death, and the Master's cunning plan was scuppered. This was the premonition the Keturah had of the Master getting hold of one of these stones should he have influenced events in his favour.
3 million years in the future, a fleet of Vendrovian death ships broke out of hyperspace to hang in the stratosphere of the dwarf moon Sparrow. A single ship contained enough firepower to obliterate the moon, or sterilize all life on its surface. But every ship in the fleet now trained its full arsenal on a small district in the Eastern Hemisphere, on one particular nation-state, a town, the castle there, the main courtyard, a podium, the man in velvet. Ah. He smiled wolfishly, toying with a jewel in his hand. Now that I have your attention,
I feel the Master was written perfectly in this audio, just showing how sly this version of the character can be. He reminded me of the snake from the Genesis tale of the Garden of Eden, as he was presented as this slithery, evil, manipulative being. Let's put it this way, the Master was so evil in this story that he makes the living embodiment of death look like the hero at the end of the story. I love how the writer made this flip as you started listening to the audio being on the Master's side and slowly realised that he's not only creeped into the Katura's head, he's creeped into yours as well. This audio is absolutely perfect and I can't fault it, to be honest. I have to give this one a 10 out of 10. Beautifully written and masterfully executed. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. Okay, so that's the end of today's review. I do hope you enjoyed the video. I did make this one a little bit longer as I wanted to do both the stories justice and do a proper review of each. Even though I know they're only half an hour long in themselves, I did kind of want to really express my love for this because I really loved both of these stories. Now, next video, I'm going to be reviewing the Echoes of Extinction 8th Doctor side. I'm only going to be doing the 8th Doctor side at the moment because that's right for the timeline, so do check that out when I release that. And yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you very much for watching.